But when I get the folks going, but Eric, I'm still not sure. I know you told me to do this and say this, but I'm just not sure if that's right. And what if this doesn't go well? And what if that doesn't go well? And I'll look at them and say, listen, cancel. Welcome to Life of a CISO. I'm Dr. Eric Cole, your host, and we'll be taking you on a journey each week on what it takes to be a CISO and what are solutions that you can implement today if you are currently a Chief Information Security Officer or if you want to be one in the future. This is Life of a CISO. Welcome to this week's episode of Life of a CISO. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. If you're a repeat listener, thank you so much for entrusting me with your knowledge, with sharing my knowledge with you so you can either become a world-class CISO or continue to escalate in being a world-class CISO. Now, what I'd like to do on this episode is what I often have to deal with a lot of my coaching and consulting clients. What I come down to, I always tell them is I'll give you what you want, but I'm going to provide you what you really need. Most people that come to me for coaching and listen to my podcast think they need technical knowledge. They think they need strategy. They think they need, okay, what is the way that you do a CISO assessment? What is the way that you evaluate and translate security information? And I give you all that. I give you what you're asking for and what you want. But what most people really need is mindset. They need to shift their mindset to believe in themselves that they can absolutely do it. Because I'll tell you right now, whether you think you can or think you can't, you are probably right. When I go in and I train up folks for interviews that want to become world-class CISOs and they're looking for their first gig, so they don't have any experience, maybe some at their current company, but this is going to be their first time flying the plane. And I talk to them a few days before. And if they're like, I am ready. I know how I'm going to do my intro. I know how I'm going to own it. I know what I'm going to say. I have my talking points. I'm going to frame and control the conversation. I'm like, go out for a nice dinner the night before. You're going to own it. But when I get the folks going, but Eric, I'm still not sure. I know you told me to do this and say this, but I'm just not sure if that's right. And what if this doesn't go well? And what if that doesn't go well? And I'll look at them and say, listen, cancel. And they're like, what? I'm like, you're not ready. I said, I apologize. I thought you were ready. But if you're going in unsure and half committed, you are not going to do well. It's not going to come across well. There's going to be uncertainty. You're going to question yourself. You're not going to present correctly because your mind isn't here. You win the job first here before you ever go to the interview. You win the job up here. You are so convinced that you're going to get the job that by the time you go for the job, it's just a formality. One of my favorite examples of that, it was one of the tennis pros. I think it was Pete Sampress. The first time he won at Wimbledon, the big tennis, right? You can tell I'm not super tennis guy, but you know what I'm talking about, right? I think the British Open is where that's played, but whatever. It's one of the biggest tennis matches in the world. Let's call it the British Open. And after he won for the very first time, they went up to him and said, Pete, you look excited, but you don't look as excited as we thought you would be. And he goes, well, this is the 100th time I've won. And they look at him like, dude, this is your first time. Go back home. This is the first time you have the trophy. And he's like, yes, formally, this is the first time I actually had to perform the steps publicly. But I won the British Open hundreds of times in my head before today. So today was just a formality that I had to go through to prove to the rest of the world. And it was like, dude, that's like huge, right? But that's what it comes down to. You have to believe in yourself and you have to believe you have that job before it happens. So I'm going to give you a couple of stories that I give my coaching clients with CISO to sort of help them. First one, prior to 1952, for 100 years, it was believed that a human being could not run a mile in under 4 minutes. They said it was impossible. There were even some rumors that your heart would explode and you would die. I mean, just crazy, crazy stuff that was spread around there, and everybody believed it. And the reason we know that everybody believed it is because nobody ran the mile prior to 1952 in under 4 minutes. Now, the interesting thing about it is there was no scientific data. There was no validation. It was just limiting beliefs that people accepted as the truth. And here's what you have to remember. Your mind is a goal-achieving machine. It wants to go in. It's like that genie in the bottle that wants to fulfill your wishes. So if you sit there and say, I cannot run the mile in under 4 minutes, or if I run the mile in under 4 minutes, I will die, my heart will explode, your brain is going to protect you. And I don't care how well fit you are and whether your muscles can handle it, your brain is going to be like, not going to happen. It's going to protect you. That's the role of the brain. It's a goal-achieving machine. So you got to be very careful of what we call these limiting beliefs that become facts that control and manage what you can or can't do in your life. Now, here's why I know that it was just a limiting belief that was false, because all limiting beliefs are false. In 1952, Roger Bannister ran the mile in under 4 minutes. Now, he didn't have a special operation on his legs to be Superman. He didn't get special sneakers. They didn't change anything. The only thing that changed was he overcame the limiting belief and believed beyond a shadow of his doubt that he was fully capable of running the mile in under 4 minutes and surviving and living through the experience. It wasn't going to kill him. Now, if it really was something magical about Roger Bannister, we would have seen 1952, he broke the 4 minute mile, and then for the next 80 years, no one would have done it. So it would have just been this anomaly that existed. But here's the wild thing. As soon as he overcame that limiting belief and proved it could be done, within 6 months, 3 other people ran the mile under 4 minutes. In a year, 8 people did it. Today, almost 80 years later, over 1,400 people have ran the mile in under 4 minutes. And it's even been done at high school track meets. So it's now become something very, very common. But it was all because Roger Bannister broke that limiting belief. And I bring up that story because how many 4 minute miles do you have in your life? And I'll give you some examples. I was coaching somebody and they're like, Eric, I'm not good at math. I'm not good with numbers. My parents said I wasn't good. My high school accounting teacher says I wasn't good, and I failed accounting in college. I'm not good. So if I'm going to be a CISO and you're telling me I got to go in and know numbers and budgets and profits and revenue and EPIDIC and all that stuff, it ain't going to happen. Great. It ain't going to happen. You're right. And I've had somebody, that was my initial call, and they were ready to cut me a check to coach them. And I said, I'm not going to take you as a client. And they said, why? I said, because you believe you can't run the mile in under 4 minutes. And I told them the story. I said, so I can give you everything you need. I can help you out. But you and only you can decide whether you're going to break that 4 minute mile. Because I can't change that. I can't go in and reprogram your brain. I wish I could just go like in the movie Men in Black, where you go zoop and you change their brain, you make them change, forget, and alter their memory. You can't do that. So those are things I can point out to you. I can tell you that you have limiting beliefs that are holding you back from running a 4 minute mile. Just want to take a quick break. I hope you're enjoying the show. I have this free webinar that I would love for you to check out if you want to become a world-class CISO. And I can tell you how to overcome it, but only you can overcome that. So if you want to be a world-class CISO, you need to figure out what are those limiting beliefs that are holding you back. Now, once you figure them out, here's the trick. The first thing you need to do is recognize that limiting beliefs are always false because they don't make you feel good. Therefore, they're not true. So I want you to come up with evidence of why that's not true. So for example, with this person, they asked me to help them, and I felt bad, the ones that said they're not good at numbers or accounting. And I said, okay, have you ever balanced a checkbook? And they said, well, yes. I said, and you did it successfully. You didn't overwrite checks or anything or overdraw your account. No. I said, well, that sounds like you're good with money. I said, have you ever gone to a restaurant and calculated the tip without using your phone? They said, well, yes. I said, well, that sounds like you're good with money. And they sort of smiled. So I started to go in and show them that it wasn't true. You start showing evidence that it isn't true. It's just made up lies. And then you go in and replace it with what I call an empowering truth. And here's the trick with empowering truths. They always start with I am and they're in present tense. You don't say I'm going to be good at numbers. You say I am a world-class CISO that can read spreadsheets like a pro. And then you keep going over that. Now, this is different than incantations where you're like, it's not going to rain, it's not going to rain, it's not going to rain, it's not right, and it's raining out, right? That's not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is reprogramming your brain to believe that it can do something without a shadow of a doubt. And once again, if you're listening and you're like, man, I thought Dr. Cole was really good and smart and he's a woo-woo whack job, trust me, this stuff works. And if you don't believe me, you'll get to some point in your life where you're not successful and you've hit that roadblock because it's a limiting belief that somebody planted and your brain believes it. And you need to go in and say that it's false, get facts to prove that it's not correct, and then replace that with that empowering truth. So you can go in and become that world-class CISO or whatever it is you want to be in your life. So that's the first thing. What are the 4-minute miles? What are the limiting beliefs that are restricting you from becoming a CISO? Because you can do it. You just have to overcome them. Next, one of my other favorite stories. In 1998, planning for the Olympic Games in Sydney, Australia in 2000, the British crew team did something interesting. They recognized there's 1-person, 2-person, and 8-person boats. And they realized that the 8-person boat was highly competitive, super, super competitive. And the Australians and the US dominated. So they said, you know something? We're not going to focus on that. We're going to take our best rowers and put them in the smaller boats. So their best rowers went in the singles and the doubles. And they bet that they're going to win that. And then whoever was left over went into the 8-person. Now you can imagine, and these people knew they did that. So you can imagine this boat crew was a little feisty. Right? That they had something to prove. They had a chip on their shoulder. And they decided 2 years before the Olympics, that the only acceptable outcome at the Olympics was gold. If they won silver or bronze, unacceptable. The only option was gold. And they said, okay, what do we need to do to win gold? And they said, we have to have the fastest boat on the water. We have to do everything we possibly can to make our boat go faster than anyone else. So they came up with a question that guided every single decision in their life for 2 years. Will it make the boat go faster? Literally every decision. Friends want to go grab some beers tonight. I was working hard. It's been a long day. I deserve to have a little fun. Will it make the boat go faster? No. Now, whether it'll make it go slow is irregardless, but drinking is not going to make the boat go faster. So you say no. Getting up at 5 a.m. and doing strength exercise to build up your leg muscles. Will that make the boat go faster? Yes. And you can see every single decision. They became obsessed with their goal. And there's a great book called Will It Make the Boat Go Faster? Right? Highly recommend. And yes, not to spoil the ending, right? But it'd be a really bad example if they didn't win gold. And they did, right? So they eventually did win gold, but there's a lot of ups and downs. But the point is, things went wrong. Things didn't go as planned. They had failures in qualifying races. There were moments and times where things did not look good. People on their team got injured. They had to do last-minute replacements. Life isn't going to be fair. It's not going to go as planned, and there's going to be bumps along the road. But all they did was kept being obsessed. We don't care. Based on the light of what happened, our decisions will be driven by will it make the boat go faster? What do we need to do right now today to make that boat go faster? And that's something I use in my life and I use with my company, and it's an amazing concept. So whatever my goal is that I have, will it help me achieve that goal? Will it make the boat go faster? And it's to the point where my kids, and 2 of them are in college, they sort of laugh, where they'll call me up and they're like, Dad, can you just be a dad? And can you just listen to us? And can you just give us advice? Because like they'll go in and they'll ask me a question. And I believe, and I'm a big fan of, smart people know the right answer. Brilliant people ask the right questions. So I know the correct answer. And I believe they do, they just don't realize it. But I will just ask them the question. Well, let me tell you, you got a midterm on Tuesday, and you're asking me what you should do Sunday night. Will it make the boat go faster? Will it make that boat go faster? Now, resting probably will. Going for a walk probably will. Getting drunk probably won't. All right, so you got to go in and decide that. So that's something else. If you want to be a world-class CISO, then you have to be willing to commit 2 years of constantly asking yourself, will it make the boat go faster? Will this make me a world-class CISO? Now, for many of you, because the market is very ripe and there's a lot of need for CISOs, and if you do what I said with the interviews in previous Life of a CISO podcasts, you will probably get there sooner. But it's got to be a 2-year commitment. Anything it takes to get the job done, and you will be a world-class CISO. The problem with most people is as soon as the first failure happens or the second one, they give up. Eric, I've went on 3 interviews and they weren't interested. I guess it's right. I'm not really a leader. So notice what you did. You believed you can run the mile in under 4 minutes. And then you had 3 races that you didn't. And you went back to your limiting belief saying, I can't run the mile in 4 minutes. That's this. All these things are going to get, it's this vicious cycle here. So you got to, once again, commit to a long period and a lot of failures along the way. Because if you're sitting there and saying, I'm going to be a world-class CISO, I'm going to be, and you believe it, and 2 interviews later, you didn't get the job and you give up, you got to be doing whatever it takes. Whatever it takes. What I always go in when I coach folks is, if you don't want to, and I'll give you free coaching right now. If you want, I'd love for you to join my CISO cert, secure-anchor.com CISO. I'd love to coach you. I'd love to help you. But I also, if you want to do it yourself, it's real easy. And here's what you got to do. Go on 500 interviews where they don't hire you. Make your goal to fail 500 times. I know that sounds bizarre, but to me, failure is not a negative term. Failure only becomes a negative term if you view it as a negative and you quit. But to me, failure is a learning opportunity for me to optimize. Here's how I look at it. I want it to be hard to get a CISO job if I'm in your position. Here's why. If everybody that says I'm a world-class CISO overcomes the limiting belief, goes on an interview and gets a job, it was that easy, it would be overcrowded. Everybody would be a CISO and there wouldn't be any jobs out there. But if it means to become a world-class CISO, you have to get 500 job interviews that say no. I know most people are not going to do that, and I am, which means I'm going to become a world-class CISO. That's how you have to think about it. And the reason why I like this, to embrace this concept of failure, you control it. You can't control whether you get a job. So if you go in and say, well, if I don't get a job in this interview, I'm quitting, you're going to probably quit. But if I'm saying I'm going to go on 500 interviews, and if I get a job, amazing, but my goal is to do 500 interviews, you will get a job way before then. You might get a job at 70, 80, 90, but that's the mindset. It has to be a non-negotiable. And you keep improving. After every interview, you improve. After every interview, you ask questions. I would go in when I would first start in a CISO role, and I've been doing CISO work now, I'm consulting on it, but when I was first a CISO in the 90s, I think I went on 17 interviews when I was leaving the agency to become a CISO. And after the interview, the first couple, I would actually ask them, saying, do you have any recommendations for me on how I can improve? Are there any areas that stood out that you thought I could be a little stronger on? And they look at me like, really? You're asking us that? I'm like, absolutely. I said, I want to become a world-class CISO, and I want to get better, and I want to know what additional things that you need to hire me. I went into those first couple of interviews not expecting to get job offers because I was learning. I wanted to learn from those experiences. I knew that my goal was 12 months, that I was going to become a CISO at a top company. So to me, it was all learning along the way. It wasn't failure, it was learning. I wanted, those first 5 or 6 interviews was all about me extracting data on what I need to do to get better. Now, a couple of them did offer me a job, which was a bonus, but that was not my plan. Right? So that's how you have to think about it, is will it make the boat go faster? If asking questions, if you've never been a CISO and you've never been on an interview, and your first interview, you ask them for feedback. You ask them how you could have done better. You ask them of areas that you could have been stronger on. Will that make your boat go faster? Absolutely. It absolutely will. So do it. And you might get the job and you might not, but who cares? It'll make the boat go faster. So that's where you got to get obsessed with putting in the time, energy, and effort. This isn't going to happen overnight. It's not going to be simple, but if you put in the energy and effort, it will happen. And then my third favorite story, which is really understanding what juices you up. Marie Callender was a waitress at a Greasy Spoon diner. And this diner was going out of business. It was going out of business, and this was her only job. And she needed to support her family. So she was tired and exhausted because she was working double shifts, right, taking care of the family. She was exhausted. The last thing she wanted to do was more work. But she saw an opportunity. So she went to the owner of the diner and said, listen, I make a really good pie. Are you okay if I make a pie tonight and I bring it in and I try selling it at the diner to make a little extra money? He's like, I don't care. Go ahead, bake your pie. It doesn't matter to me, whatever you want to do. So she went home that night and baked her pie. She brought it in the next day. All the pieces sold out. So the next night, she baked another pie. By 10 a.m. that morning, people were asking for the pie and they were sold out. The owner sent her home and said, go bake 3 more pies. So the next day, 3 pies, 5 pies, 10. It got to the point where she actually saved up her money and put a commercial oven in her house. And then it got to the point where she actually took over and bought out the owner of the diner because all he was selling was pies, right? He wasn't selling hamburgers anymore. And at the time, I think it was like 5 or 6 years ago, when Marie Callender sold off her company, it was worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And even today, if you go to any supermarket and go to the fast food dessert section, you'll see Marie Callender pies. Now, here's the problem. Most people look at Marie Callender, they look at what she did, and they go, oh, she got lucky. All right, she had it easy. She must have had a trust fund. I mean, somebody must have gave her a lot of money. And we come up with this false narrative to justify why we're not doing the work. Justify why somebody else was successful and we weren't. But here's what it ultimately came down to. She baked her pie. Bake your pie. What I mean by that is do the work. Show up and do the work. I know you have a full-time job. I know you're tired. I know you have a family. I know you have kids. But if you want to be a world-class CISO, Game of Thrones can wait. Don't go home and after dinner watch Game of Thrones. Spend those 2 or 3 hours trying to get clients, putting together videos, reaching out, baking your pie. And then once people notice that, that's how you become big. But all successful people started off with taking chances, putting in hard work, and doing more than what most people will do. So my other piece of advice to you is bake your pie. Marie Callender believes that her purpose in life was to bake pies. So she put all her energy and effort. Now, to me, I'm big on purpose. Purpose is the thing you do better than anyone else with the least amount of effort. I believe my purpose is to educate and inform people to make cyberspace a safe place to live, work, and raise a family. I truly believe that's my purpose. I love doing it. I'm in here, just so you know, it's on a Saturday afternoon I'm recording this, and I'm loving it. It's a beautiful day outside. People have asked me to do stuff, but I knew I was going to be traveling, and I wanted to get this episode, and I love this. This is my purpose. So I showed up and baked my pie today. I could have easily put it off. I could have easily made excuses, but I wasn't going to do that. So if you want to be a world-class CISO, make sure you realize that it's your purpose, that it's your purpose in life, and then you'll put the energy and effort. Now, one warning with that. Don't confuse the P's. I see people confuse passion and purpose. I truly believe that you could have many passions throughout your life. But I believe the purpose is one. Everyone has a single purpose of why they're here. And I believe if you're listening to this, it's to provide leadership, strategy, and to hopefully join me. And people can have the same purpose, right? There's multiple pie companies, right? Marie Callender wasn't the only one with the purpose to make pies. So I'd love for you to join me if that's truly your purpose, to make cyberspace a safe place to live, work, and raise a family. But you got to figure out what your purpose is. Now, to me, I believe the reason why kids in college change their majors and get lost is because they get caught up in passion. And you see this. Somebody goes in and says, yeah, I want to be a computer science. But they go to their second semester and their computer science teacher is boring and they don't get passion, but their psychology teacher is amazing. I mean, just totally jazzed because they're living their purpose. So they get a passion going, oh, I want to help people. I'm going to be a psychologist. And then the third class, they have a bad teacher. They lose the passion, but they take a marketing class with an amazing teacher who's living their purpose. Like, oh, I want to be marketing. And they jump around because they're doing things that get them passionate for a short period of time, but they never really tapped into their purpose. So if you want to be a world-class CISO, make sure that this is really your purpose. And the way you can tell is you enjoy doing it, you're good at it with the least amount of effort. And here's the real question. If you'll wake up early to do it and stay up late, it's your purpose. If you're not willing to put in extra time, If Game of Thrones is more important than you reaching out, studying, or creating videos to help your clients, yeah, you probably need to find a different purpose. And trust me, you could be successful. I have a friend of mine. He loves detailing cars. It's a company on Long Island worth $5.5 million. I have a teacher, friend of mine, total purpose is teaching. And between tutoring and online videos and everything else, he's a teacher making 7 figures. So you can be successful at anything you want if you find that purpose and you bake your pie. So just wrapping everything up. What are the things that are holding you back? What are your 4-minute miles that are prohibiting you, and overcome them? Then become obsessed. Become obsessed with, will it make the boat go faster? Will it make me a world-class CISO? And then make sure it's aligned with your purpose. And if it is, bake your pie. Bake your pie. Don't listen to anyone else. And I can't wait to hear your success story of you being a world-class CISO.